everyone, I'm Sudeepthi Dondapati, working as an associate professor in the Department of Placement and Training, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering College. I'm here today to introduce a course named English for Career Development. It's basically a language course for engineering graduates. And the title of today's topic is Understanding the Basics of Communication Skills. So the intention behind naming this title is one important reason. So what's that? Nowadays, we all encounter with one common, typical problem. So what is that? Communication problem, communication gap. We all say that we don't have proper understanding of the concepts that are happening around, and basically the way we comprehend the topics and the way we respond to the topics is very, very, very important. And we have so many problems dealing with that. So do you know the reason behind that? It's all about communication gaps or communication problems. So that is the reason today I have come up with the basic topic for you to understand it, and then you can apply the rules of it so that you can venture into communication world using all the theoretical inputs that are covered in the topic or in the video today. So you need to have an overall comprehensive picture of communication skills. So what are communication skills? Let me give you a small example so that you can connect it very effectively. A 7-year-old boy wants to drive a car, or wants to drive a bicycle, or wants to drive any vehicle that he's interested in. And no wonder now they are very curious enough to understand the mechanics of driving car. So once upon a time, it happened so that the boy wants to drive a motorcycle or a bicycle. It could be anything. So those people around him want him not to go for it. But then this boy insisted on driving that. So without knowing the mechanics of driving, or without knowing the mechanics of driving a motorcycle or a bicycle, he wants to continue to learn that, and he wants to continue to ride that bicycle. But then the mistake he has done before he started doing it is, like, he doesn't know anything about it in and out of that driving or mechanics. But then he started doing it. So what happened then? He caused a major accident, and then he hit a person behind the person who is coming behind him. So the basic the reason for him to drive is all about curiousness. So he's curious enough, but that is not enough at all. He has to understand the mechanics of driving a motorcycle or any interested vehicle that he wants to do it. So it could be a 7-year-old boy, or it could be like 17 years old boy, or it could be 70-year-old man. So you need to be very much thorough, or you need to be very much proficient in whatever you take up. So that is why you need to understand the basics of communication skills when it comes to communication. So many people, they communicate so effectively without knowing without knowing the basics of communication. But do you think they communicate effectively? No, not at all. So because of these reasons, they lack proper inputs, of understanding communication skills. So for that reason, I have come up with a few topics in today's discussion. So the first thing I want to discuss is the meaning of communication skills. So what is the meaning of it? And then, is there any procedure to it? Yes, there is a procedure. And then if you have to do this effective communication skills, so what are some important key aspects that are involved? So for that, I want you to understand the word, or the meaning of the word communication skill. Basically, it is a late Latin word that means communis, which means to transmit or to impart. So what do you transmit and what do you impart? You can transmit any sort of information you intended to, or you want to share the ideas you have, or you want to share the thoughts you have for the people around you. So it could be one person or more than one person. So what you are doing is basically you're transmitting. That means you're passing on the information. So you are sharing the information. That is the meaning of it. So when you do it, remember, in communication or in any communication activity, you are transferring the information. So you need to be very humble enough to understand the mechanics of communication skills. So it is all about the activity of conveying information through the exchange of thoughts, messages, or information by means of speech, visuals, signals, writing, or behavior. So in any means, so you will be using the medium of transport. What is that medium of transport? It could be your speech, it could be your email, it could be your telephonic conversation, or it could be of any mode of transport, or any medium of vehicle that you want to communicate your thoughts or information or your ideas. So that is all about communication skills. Then the word communication is transferring or transmitting or sharing the information. Could be anything. Then what about the word skill? Skill is the ability to do something well. It is all to do how you perform and how you do it, how you carry out it. So it is all about how able you are to implement that. So communication skill. So it is a skill you communicate, or it is the ability to transform the information. So, and there is a procedure to it. So you need to understand the mechanics of communication. So what are some theoretical aspects that you need to look into? So these are some theoretical aspects you need to consider before you communicate. It's just like a boy who met with an accident or who caused this horrible accident without understanding the mechanics of driving. So it's just similar to that. You need to understand what are the important elements or the important aspects of this communication. So sender plays a very important role. So the important aspects are like this. Sender, passes the information, and what does he do after that? Then he encodes information, and then thereby it is decoded, and thereby the recipient receives it, and then he or she gives feedback. So the sender, encoding, decoding, and then receiver or the recipient receiving the information and then giving the feedback. So the important aspects are like this: sender, encode, decode, and then feedback. And in between, there are some integral elements or the vehicles that connect these aspects. What are they? They are channels and then they are barriers. And channels are nothing but the means of transportation or the means of transferring the information. Could be your speech, or could be your writing, it could be your email, or it could be your message, WhatsApp message, or any kind of message, any means of communication. And then barriers are very important and they're very essential. What are barriers? They hinder the progress of communication, or they hinder, or they obstruct, or what do they do? They stop effective communication because of so many problems. So we can look into all those barriers in a later part of discussion. So now you need to understand some strategies for effective communication, and in order to have these effective strategies, you need to understand the important aspects. So one important aspect is verbal communication. So verbal communication is very important, and then non-verbal communication. So these form the crux of communication skills. So if you know how to communicate verbally effectively, then your communication is in place. So now, good verbal communication skills of the employees of any organization for that matter foster excellent business relationships with organizations, customer supply. So these verbal communication skills. What are verbal communication skills? using words. Verbal intensity should be there. So using words effectively. So you communicate using words. So how do you use words? And what type of words do you use? And what type of vocabulary you use? So all these are very important. And also, excellent verbal communication is a key to maintaining successful relationships. So you need, if you want to have excellent verbal communication, you need to maintain this strategies, or you need to maintain this verbal communication in a proper way. And then effective communication causes productivity to increase. At the same time, ineffective communication causes many problems. So you need to understand verbal communication. So to look into this verbal communication a little deeper, I want to say that there is a process to it. So when you send the information, do you remember the slide? The sender, or the person who initiates the message, will encode the message. That means he creates a message, and thereby he sends through that channel. And then what happens then? Immediately the message is decoded by the recipient. That means the person who is receiving the message will start understanding, will start comprehending the message, and thereby he gives feedback immediately in the form of any kind of feedback, like any kind of response. It could be a good response, or it could be a bad response, and then finally he retorts, and then again this is cyclical. It happens again and again. So then the person sender initiates a message and then gives the message, and then the person who is decoding the message will receive it, and then he gives the feedback, and in between there are barriers. So okay, let me ask you a question. If these are very so simple, if these are very easy, then why is there a communication gap between two people or among any organization? So what are these employees doing it? They are not able to comprehend it. Oh, do you mean by this? Oh, I understood that. So what is the reason? And then, for example, if a person who is a manager who delivers a message starts delivering message, then the person who is receiving will misunderstand. And as a result, he gives a different response in the form of any writing or in the form of any speaking. So what is happening there? There are communication gap is something that is built because of these barriers. So either the sender doesn't know how to communicate effectively, or the decoder or the person who is decoding the message is not able to comprehend the message. So you need to understand it very carefully. So if you can know this pragmatics, or if you can know this mechanics of communication skills, then it is very easier for you to have this effective communication skills. Then there are some ways of acquiring better verbal communication. So what are some ways? You need to read more. You need to read more in order to know what to speak. And then you need to prepare yourself. What is that? Preparation is very important. You go anywhere without preparation, then you will have a starting problem. You do not know where to start it and what to start it. So you need to prepare yourself well with the words you want to communicate and with the message you want to share. And then you need to listen carefully. So what do you want to listen? So what do you listen is very important. Not hearing, but listening. That is something very important. And then you should be mindful of the message. Okay, you should be mindful of what you're communicating. So you need to restate your ideas properly in case if you go wrong. And then you need to be mindful of the words. You need to be mindful of your listening. You need to be mindful of the words. Words play a very important role, my dear listeners, I say. Because if I use a wrong word, if I don't use proper punctuation, if I don't use proper tone, that is intonation, if I don't use proper stress, I will not be able to communicate effectively. So at the same time, the listener needs to listen attentively. Because of all these communication gaps, the information is not delivered. And you go and observe, analyze any person, this communication gap does exist. It's because the person, the speaker, doesn't know the mechanics of communication. And then you need to, in order to have this verbal communication, to be delivered effectively, you need to know the audience. You need to know your audience. You need to know your topic. You need to plan your presentation. or you need to plan your message properly. So these are some key ingredients that you need to be very much be focused upon, and thereby you can understand the essence of communication, and then you will be able to deliver an excellent communication to your audience or to your listeners. So keeping all these things in your mind, I feel that you would certainly take this all the ingredients or the raw materials that I have put before you and take it seriously when you communicate with your parts. And then what are these raw materials? Verbal communication. What are these? The important aspects, you need to know the vocabulary, you need to know how to initiate a message, you need to know how to decode it, you need to know how to be very sensitive to the barriers of communication. And then you also should be able to plan your presentation, knowing the audience, the pulse of the audience, and knowing your topic. Without knowing it, you get prepared, and without knowing the topic that you're going to deliver will be definitely a problem. So you need to carry out all these things, essential traits or important traits of communication skills in order to be an effective communicator. So thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.